Hello, this is SAS4 and I'm going to be talking about weapon augments and armor augments to use because I see the question go out all the time, what augment should I use on this, that, whatever, and I see it so often that maybe it'll help if this video goes out and people see it and they'll know. Anyway, let's get started. So first off, I'm going to talk about each of the augments and what they do briefly. First off, we have Deadly, which is pretty much used on almost every gun. It's just a damage increase by 10% of the base per augment level. We have Piercing, which increases the amount of targets that the weapon can pierce, again by 10% of the gun's original per augment level. We have Adaptive, which allows the gun to ignore resistances on enemies, so if something has chitinous hide, which is 75% physical resistance, max adaptive, which is 40%, 4% per augment level, well, 10 adaptive at least, will ignore 40% of the 75% that it has. If you do math, 40% of 75 is, I believe that's 45? Yeah, I think it's like 45, so it will allow you to do about 30% more damage to armored zombies. And yeah, it is what it is. If I look at a different weapon that I can put enlarged on, enlarged increases the blast radius of the weapon by a very small fraction of the original, so not very much. It's not really an augment worth getting on any gun. Pinpoint, oh by the way, certain weapons can only have certain augments, like you can only get enlarged on launchers or the CM Jupiter sniper rifle for some reason. Pinpoint increases the critical chance of the weapon. The first point gives 3%, and then after that it's a little bit less. If I use this gun to check, first one gives 3% and then 1% after that. So easy. Next up we have Overclocked, which is the rate of fire increase, which is the second core augment that any full auto weapon will get. Just the flat DPS increases the rate of fire by 10% per augment level. And then if I switch back to the Poison Claw, over here we have Tenacious, which increases the damage over time by 10% per level, I believe. Like weapons are weird like this because, like, if you look at the weapon info for this, it says right now it does 133 for 3 seconds, so that's 400 over 3 seconds total. And then if I get this all the way up and I look at this, it says an extra 400 per second, but I don't know if that's a bug or not. I'm not sure if it actually is doing an extra 400 per second, because that's ludicrous. And that's not what it says. That's 3 times more damage than the original that you're getting for having max, which is insane. I think that's just the bug with the typing or something. It should be 400 health over 3 seconds. But maybe it does do that much. I don't actually know. Anywho, moving on. We have Capacity, which increases the weapon's clip size. I think by default each point of capacity is 10% of the clip size, but I think there's a minimum. If I come over here and check the shock field, yeah, there's a minimum of 1. So where the shock field has a capacity of 5, increasing the cap will increase it by 1, because you can't go any lower than 1 bullet. So it'll go up to 15, which is 3 times the original. That's not really intended, but it's how it is with the shock field. Certain weapons, mainly the Mustang and the HVM MPG, cannot have their clip size increased. I believe it's the same thing with the hand cannon premium pistol, because their clip size are so small and they're intended to be that way. The Mustang has 2 clip size, 3 if you get pistol masteries, I believe. Masteries are collections, but I think it's masteries. Yeah, it is masteries. And the MPG has 2. So they're intended to be that way, so you can't get capacity on them. Next we have race modded, which this gun already has. It's basically just a reload speed increase. I'm not sure what the exact math for race modded is in like related to the original reload speed. If I look at this here, the original is 2.2 seconds. The upgrade goes up less. I guess it just starts off at a highish amount, and then no, it started off at like 0.2 or something, and then went up a little bit. Either way, yeah, it's just a reload speed increase. Then if we move on, can't you do that with this weapon? We have skeletonized, which is a movement penalty decrease. Where's the weapon I can waste an augment on? This, I guess. It starts off at 1% or 10% for the first. This is not cheap. I guess it stays that way, but anyways, yeah, skeletonized is just movement speed decreasing. And then for the last augment we have biosynthesis, which is 3 health per kill per 3 health per kill per augment level. I actually think it goes up to 30 to level 10, but I think if you get it up to 12 with cores, you can actually get 40 per kill. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to actual guns and what you should be getting on them. So over here at the weapon collections, we can look at all the weapons, and from here, you know, tell you what, for the most part, what you should be augmenting on weapons. For pistols, in general, it doesn't really matter too much because pistols barely do any damage. Most of them are semi-auto, so you generally just do, if you really want to use the pistol, deadly adaptive capacity or deadly adaptive piercing. With the Trailblazer, deadly adaptive piercing is good because the lightning from it bounces to other targets. With the Poison Claw, you want tenacious, adaptive, and capacity. With the Mustang, you can't get capacity, so it's just usually deadly adaptive and piercing, or pinpoint, but not really that useful. Mine has deadly adaptive biosynthesis because I don't use the pistol for damage, but it helps for a quick heal if I need one. For assault rifles, for the most part, they're just deadly adaptive overclocked. With the Rhea Striker, it's semi-auto. Any of the semi-auto ones, you want deadly adaptive capacity, or pinpoint, or piercing. It's up to you, really. The Rhea Striker, you can also do deadly tenacious and adaptive because it has burn damage as well as base damage. With the Gigavolt, you want deadly overclocked piercing because it allows the lightning to bounce to other targets. With a lot of the other ones, the Hard Thorn, you might want to put piercing instead of adaptive with deadly and overclocked because it only has 1 piercing. Mixmaster, Sublight, you Starburst, whatever else you have, you want deadly adaptive and overclocked. With the shotguns, we've got for the most part, the HVM is semi-auto and the shock field is semi-auto, so on both of these you want deadly adaptive capacity. On the Strike Force you want deadly overclocked adaptive. On the Stripper you want tenacious overclocked adaptive. And on the Tempest you want deadly overclocked adaptive. The Black Tempest is a pretty good late game gun too, so if you want to core it, add piercing. Same with the Stripper, if you core it, add capacity. Also I should mention with some of these other black guns like the Rhea Trident, which you're probably not going to have for a long time, especially if you're watching this. I doubt you're going to be aiming for this at the moment, but in the off chance that you ever do get a Trident, deadly overclocked adaptive. And when you core it, because you will, capacity, or pinpoint. If you core the Mixmaster, if you core any of these, really just add capacity. Anywho, moving on to the shock field if you core it. Deadly overclocked, or not deadly overclocked, deadly adaptive capacity if you core it, piercing. Or pinpoint. Pinpoint or piercing, either one. With the snipers, the Rhea 50, and the Hornet Deadly Overclocked Adaptive. If you have 25 crit shot, Deadly Overclocked Pinpoint. With the Hicks S300, Deadly Tenacious Adaptive, or if you have crit shot, Deadly Tenacious Pinpoint. And the Jupiter, I don't really know about the Jupiter, it's kind of bad, but in any case, if you do have it, Deadly Adaptive Pinpoint, or Deadly Adaptive Piercing, because it has Bouncing Lightning as well, so Piercing is not bad. If you core them, then the only one you'd really core here is the Hornet, most likely. But Deadly Adaptive Pinpoint and Deadly Overclocked Pinpoint and Adaptive. Or Capacity. Over to the SMGs, and they all suck, and they're all fully auto, so pretty much on any of them, Deadly Overclocked Adaptive, and you wouldn't want to waste the core on an SMG. For the only laser in the game, the Hotspot, well, the only non-premium laser, you want Deadly Overclocked Adaptive. If you core it, get Capacity, or Piercing. Actually, Pierce is probably better than Adaptive for earlier levels because you're not fighting Necrosis too often, so the energy resist on it isn't all that big of a deal. So you can skip on Adaptive to get Piercing, which will effectively double your damage against more than one target, which you'll usually be facing more than one target. And the single target damage on this is so high that you don't really need Pinpoint all that much. Flamethrower, Tenacious Overclocked Adaptive. If you do core it, probably Capacity. Oh, and if you core the Hotspot, get, I guess, Capacity. Shredder, Deadly Adaptive, and Piercing, because bouncing piercing discs do a lot of damage repetitively. I don't recommend coring it, but if you do, Capacity. For the rocket launchers, pretty much any full auto launcher you want Deadly Adaptive, or Deadly Overclocked and either Adaptive or Capacity, since Rocket Launcher Mastery 5 gives you some resistance ignore. You don't have to get Adaptive, it's not quite as effective, but still helps. For the MPG, you want Deadly Race Modded, or if you don't have any points in fast reload, and you don't have like nimble, if you just have nimble gloves, like no Titan gloves, no fast reload, you can get Deadly Adaptive and Race Modded. Otherwise, just get Deadly Adaptive and Enlarged, I guess. There isn't really a whole lot of options with it. Other than that though, Deadly Overclocked Adaptive, and if you core any of them, Capacity. Or in the case of the Hex 3100, if you core it and you're not a heavy, get Skeletonized. It is worth it. And onto the LMGs, for the most part, just Deadly Overclocked Adaptive. If you get the T40, you can do Deadly Overclocked Tenacious. And if you get the Proposition and you're not a heavy, again, you want Deadly Overclocked and Skeletonized. Well, Deadly Overclocked Adaptive first, and if you core it, get Skeletonized. And then, I guess I should talk about the championship guns. I already mentioned the Trident, which is from the Lone Wolf Championship, I believe. I guess they're assigned at random championships, I'm not sure. Anyway, with the Trident, pretty much the same as any other rifle, just Deadly Overclocked Adaptive. And if you core it, Capacity, probably. For the launcher, we've got the CMX-1 Fury, which is a large acid dot launcher, with which you will want to AUG Tenacious, Overclocked, and Adaptive. And if you core it, Capacity. And we've got the Hicks M1000, which is currently, I believe this is considered the highest single target, just the highest overall DPS gun in the game. 250 by 100 with 4 pierce and 1,000 round clip. The only downside to it is long reload time and 95% movement penalty, so if you're not a heavy with maxed heavy gear, you are going to need Skeletonized on this, or you're going to have to use it very sparingly. But in any case, Deadly Overclocked and Pinpoint. You don't want Adaptive on it because you're pretty much, it does so much damage over the course of so little time that you don't really need Adaptive. You'll murder anything it touches anyways. So it's better to get Pinpoint on it for the higher boss damage, because that's where this gun really shines. You can melt a Savage Necrosis in just seconds with it. It is insane. Even with only having the 3 augments, like Deadly, Overclocked, and Pinpoint, you don't even need to, like, you can core it and aug Skeletonized and you'll still kill bosses in seconds. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that pretty much just about covers every weapon. I'm not really going to go over the premium guns, because if you're buying premium guns, then the augments are free, so, and you can reset them for free, so you can experiment with whatever you want. Anywho, that'll be all for this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if I make one. See ya.